Welcome to the Athlete Lab podcast, where we talk to driven athletes about what it takes to play at the highest levels. Today, we're joined by Cam Fowler, and it's a real special episode here. So we're going to talk to Cam about his Olympic experience. So, Cam, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
So you got to represent Team USA in a lot of stages, but playing for Team USA in the Olympics against all the best players in the NHL were all there. Talk us through that. It's in Sochi, but when did you find out? What was that lead up time, and how did that process all go?
Yeah, it was actually interesting. So, talking with a lot of the guys after the fact, they got phone calls and, from management of the team that they had made the team. And I'm not sure if my name kind of slipped through the cracks but I never got a phone call. And then for the Winter Classic, they had kids skate out in like American jerseys for the guys that had made the team. And I saw a Fowler jersey skate out onto the ice, and that was the first moment that I found out that I had made the Olympic team. So,
oh wow,
yeah,
you guys playing in the Winter Classic? Or
No, I was just watching on TV. Yeah, me and my wife now, we were just hanging out, and it was on TV, and I saw the Fowler jersey come out. So still to this day, I don't know if I was supposed to get a phone call or what, but that was a pretty cool moment.
That's really cool. Yeah, goosebumps hearing that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you probably had some emotions like, oh my gosh, how am I not in this mix? And then to see your name out there that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was thrilled when I found out. I didn't know if there were phone calls going around beforehand, so I had no knowledge. I just thought maybe everybody else found out the way that I found out, but it turns out that wasn't the case. But regardless of what happened, it was obviously an honor to be selected and an amazing experience for me.
Okay, so you find out Winter Classic, you got 5-6 weeks before the team get together. What was that like, being able to still play in the NHL and prepare for your games, but then knowing that was like right around the corner? How was that mentally?
Yeah, I think, it gave me a lot of confidence, I think. Obviously, the highest honor that an athlete that can have. So I tried to just take that with me into the regular season and still focus on my job with the team and the Ducks. And, I think if anything, it just kind of boosted the confidence I had in myself and be able to play against the best players in the world. And I was able to take that momentum all the way with me until the Olympics started.
Yeah. So you meet up with the team, you guys get to Sochi. What is that first day like? You get there, talk us through those first impressions of it's kind of adds a whole nother layer of cool when you're going into Russia, given the magnitude of the event.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, some of those moments are a little blurry now about exactly what happened. I just remember trying to get some sleep on the flight there. It was a pretty long flight. I think we flew out of New Jersey, so meet a lot of the guys on the plane, talk with everybody, and then I think when we landed, it was morning or so in Sochi, so everybody was just jet lagged and just kind of trying to adjust the time as quick as we could. And I can't remember if we had a practice that day or not, but I remember just how important it was for the team and the people involved that we stay up that day so that we could get adjusted to the time change and everything. But just playing with those guys, meeting everybody, getting to know those guys that I had played against and obviously looked up to a lot of them. That was a very cool experience for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. So those that have been Sochi's right on the Black Sea. It's a beautiful area where the rink was. It was all new built, but you're coming from the NHL where you're staying in Ritz-Carltons and it's a different thing. What was the village where you're, how was the accommodations?
It was, I think they did a good job. I think USA Hockey and everybody was able to kind of warn us about some of the challenges that we would have going over there. But I was roommates with Joe Pavelski, and it was kind of like a dorm room type of apartment setup. So it was very generic, 2 beds. I don't even think there was a TV in there. So we were watching our iPads or whatever for entertainment. But you still had your own space, and we did a lot of stuff with the team. And then there was the USA house where U.S. athletes could go and watch stuff on the TV, the coverage, and meet other athletes. And we spent a lot of time there, which was obviously very cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So you're meeting other athletes. Like, are they hockey fans? You guys are obviously the highest profile. So what was that? Was that a situation where you felt like you were just all part of it together, or was there like a pecking order, that type of thing?
No, it was, I think it was meant for everybody to feel like we were just, USA athletes competing there and supporting one another. So all of us hockey guys just felt like we were a part of that. We don't feel like we're above anybody that was competing there. And it was very cool to be able to talk with those athletes and some of the challenges that they're dealing with there compared to what we're going through, and learn about the training and everything that they had to get ready for that moment, and just be a part of that and take the hockey outside of it. I think was something that makes the whole Olympic experience very, very unique.
That's cool. Would you go watch any of the other events like our team?
I tried to. Yeah, I tried to. One of the days we went up to the mountain, which was probably at least an hour and a half or 2 hours away. They had transportation, but it was a bit of an ordeal to get up there. And I remember watching the half pipe competition with the snowboarders. Seeing that like in person was very cool. I was freezing up there, but it was just awesome to see that. Like, I remember watching that event growing up and just, admiring those guys and the skill that they had, and then it's happening right in front of me, and I'm with my USA, hockey guys. We're all pulling for the USA athletes. It was just an amazing experience that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that sounds super cool. Those guys are, they're athletes, but then they got a little crazy in them too.
Yeah.
When they,
yeah, you have to, for sure. And seeing the height that they got, like, on those jumps, you don't really recognize or realize how high it is when you watch on TV. But seeing that, like, if anything were to go wrong, that's a pretty nasty fall that they would have.
So when you're like general athletes, baseball, football, basketball, hockey players, like we all kind of are in one little hula hoop, if you will, and then you get these athletes, like extreme sport athletes. You get a chance to meet them. You're seeing them before they compete. How they're acting after. Is there anything you picked up, like, from a development standpoint, or something that maybe they were doing unique? They obviously push their bodies to extreme limits. And was there anything that kind of opened your eyes to something?
I think just the biggest takeaway, for me was the amount of time and effort that some of those athletes were putting in beforehand, and then in the Olympic experience, they might get, say the half pipe guys, they might get two runs. So you're training for 4 years, doing all this stuff, like getting your mind right, your body right, to go to Russia, and then you might have 2 opportunities to, nail your tricks and try and get into the medal round or whatever, and that could be the end of it. So just the mentality that you would have to just prepare yourself for that moment. We, as hockey guys, we were naturally being prepared for it with the season and everything, and already playing against each other, so there was a lot of knowledge of one another. But I just found that amazing that you could train for 4 years and just go out for 30 seconds, in the biggest moment of your life. Like, that would be a really hard mentality to have, I think.
Yeah, that would be tough. It's impressive what they do and all the commitment for that.
For sure.
Yeah, it makes those gold medals even more impressive.
Yeah.
So getting back to the hockey, you play the preliminaries. You have the game against Russia on the calendar. That must have obviously been circled from the word go.
Yeah.
And then, so talk me through that game. It looked like pretty cool.
Yeah, it was amazing experience. Obviously, the energy there in Russia, just all the background noise, the political side of everything. So being a part of that as a really young kid, I remember feeling pretty nervous, pretty jittery for that game. And I was third pairing with Kevin Shattenkirk. I think we were partners, and we were not getting a whole lot of playing time, maybe like 9 or 10 minutes, but we were both on the power play, so that was an exciting moment for us to be able to do that. And then I was able to get one to go in off my shin pad and against Russia, and it counted. It was a power play goal, and one of the best moments of my career is being able to score a goal in the Olympics in Russia against Russia. So, and we ended up winning. I can't remember if it was in a shootout or not, but it was a great game, and just the energy in the arena and the atmosphere was just unbelievable.
That's awesome. Yeah, that must have been a perfect silence to hear the silent Russian crowd after you scored.
Yeah. I think it was. I remember. I knew it was like a good goal. I knew I didn't kick it in, but I was worried that it was gonna be overturned or something weird was gonna happen. So I was very happy when it stood as a good goal.
That's cool. Yeah. What would be something that people don't see, that goes on at the Olympics for the athletes, or maybe even the ones that are fortunate enough to go as spectators? Is there anything that you're like, wow, this wasn't like that, or maybe your family came and they experienced something like that?
Yeah, I know. I think there's a variety of things. I mean, the village. The cool part about the Olympics is all of the athletes being in the same space with one another. So going to the cafeteria and sitting down with figure skaters, or the mountain sports were somewhere else. I wish those athletes were there too, but we spent a lot of time with the women's hockey team there, so talking with them and just meeting really cool people from all walks of life, I think is kind of makes the Olympic experience unique. And then just the freedom kind of within the village, but only for Olympic athletes. We were riding bikes around and just seeing what was going on at that moment, speed skating or curling. Like, there was so many things that you could do to spend time there, and just doing it all with the USA athletes, I think made it very, very cool for me.
Yeah, that's cool. Was there like one athlete that was most memorable, or maybe somebody you stayed in touch with over the years after the Olympics?
No, I haven't stayed in touch with anybody I met there. I do remember we took the bus up to the mountain to watch the snowboarding, and I remember there's a bunch of vans going back and forth from the bottom of the mountain all the way up, and I was in there with a few teammates, and there was a little he seemed like a little kid in the back of the van, and he just had one other person with him, and he had his snowboard. And I remember thinking, I'm like, is this kid competing in the Olympics? And turns out it was this young Japanese phenom. He was like 15 or 16 years old, and I think he ended up medaling that year. And I was sitting in the same van with him, like, before his huge run that he's probably been training for years, and we were just in the same van going up and down the mountain. It's just you can come across things like that when you're there, and seeing him compete after just being in there with him for a little bit was something that I'll remember for a long time.
That's crazy that you think he's 15 years old. He probably started snowboarding when he was 4 or 5, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then to be that good, to all of a sudden be amongst the best in the world,
yeah,
incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome. And not knowing, like, I don't know much about snowboarding, but then all of a sudden you're there and people are like, oh, there's the phenom, and just the same kid that you were sharing a van with. It was just crazy how all that worked out.
So you mentioned, USA Hockey, again, it warns you a little bit or tries to lay out what it's going to be like and all the differences. When you're coming from an NHL structure where it's, pregame skate, pregame meal, you really have it kind of laid out every game. Was it similar there, or were you guys trying to kind of having to adapt with how you practice? Like, what's a day in the life like in that type of tournament?
Yeah, I think USA Hockey and everybody involved tried to keep it as kind of standard, standard operation for us. I think it was, if it was an off day, it was 11 o'clock practice, video before, meetings before. On game day, I honestly can't even. I think it was optional morning skate because I think we played every night at 8 or 8:30. So we had a lot of day before the game. So I think we did optional morning skate, meetings after, and then you take your nap, pregame meal, and then you go to the rink. So they did a pretty good job of keeping all that very normal for us. They didn't, there wasn't much that we had to change other than just getting adjusted to the time and everything, which just takes a few days. But everything else was pretty standard.
That's good because I mean, you get your little bit creatures of habits. I think all
for sure
all athletes are, so you're able to do that. But you mentioned like you eat, you take your nap, like all of those like preparation things have to stay the same. But you're obviously blending in with some of these guys you would have played with on some national teams maybe. When you're learning, like you're in that straight performance, you're learning maybe different systems. How hard is that? And you mentioned you're playing less minutes than you're used to in the NHL, but you're playing on the power play. Like, how was that whole thing to adapt? And, was there anything that you learned from that?
Yeah, it was a lot of information given in a pretty short amount of time. So there were conversations that I had with some of the coaches leading up to the tournament, just trying to understand the system that we were playing, what was expected of me and my specific role. And a lot of that was power play related. So I'm pretty sure that was Laviolette that was running the power play. So having some contact with him, and then the system stuff, it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Guys had played similar systems before, but just taking it to the Olympic size ice, I think, was kind of an adjustment. But honestly, it was just settling in after the first couple practices, and then I think our first game was against Slovenia, I'm pretty sure. So a lot of nerves for that one, but once the games got started, I didn't really feel like I had to think that much. The instincts just took over, and I'm sure most of the other guys felt the same way.
You see your jersey, you come out on the ice, and you find out you make the team, and you put Team USA's jersey on before, but what was the difference? You put the Olympic jersey on. Was there a moment where you look down and smile, or was that where the nerves take over?
Yeah, I was able to get in, a pretty good headspace for that tournament, where I knew this was obviously a once in a lifetime opportunity, and so I tried to soak it all in as much as I could, and the first time I put the jersey on, I took a few extra seconds to just think about, kind of what led me to this moment. And I got to share it with my family, which was amazing. And then, honestly, the Slovenia game, after the first few minutes, I was able to settle in. I was super, super nervous for the Russia game. Obviously got a goal, which was pretty lucky, but it helped me settle in. And after that, I felt relatively comfortable in the tournament. So, I was just trying to get prepared for that moment. I think it takes a little bit of time, especially at a young age, but I was able to settle in okay.
It's really cool to hear a couple of those. Like, firstly, you take that extra second to recognize what that means to wear that jersey in that event. Like, that's incredible. And then to say that you're nervous, like I love that, because it's like that's real. It's if you're a young athlete coming up, you're playing 12, 13. Usually every year you're playing the biggest game of your life.
Yeah.
So to hear someone as an established NHLer just acknowledge being nervous at the game, that's a good message for kids, because that's real. You care.
Yeah, I mean, it's I would be just lying blatantly if I said I wasn't nervous, because I was. I think it means you care. There's a lot that you have invested in this. There's still games in my career now where I feel nervous. It's just a part of being an athlete and caring about your performance, caring about your teammates. I think it's normal to have nerves, and they've gotten better as I've gotten older, but I was 22 or 23 when I played in Sochi, so the nerves were definitely there.
Yeah. You mentioned the goal helped you the first couple of shifts against Slovenia. Was there anything in particular that you did to help you settle in, or is it just kind of as you realized that it's just another hockey player?
Yeah, it was. I stuck to my routine that I was doing in Anaheim, that in my pregame routine that helped me get to that moment. So I think it's important, when you find a good routine that helps you and makes you feel good about yourself going into the game. I think having that is very important. And I think, once I got a few shifts under my belt in the Slovenia game, I just realized, it's still the same game I've been playing for years. Yes, the stakes are higher and it's more magnified on the biggest stage, but I was there for a reason. I had earned the opportunity to do that, and I just was able to kind of trust my instincts once the nerves and the magnitude of everything kind of settled down for me.
So defending on the Olympic sheet, a lot gets talked about the different sizes and the play outside the dot. That's when the rink's the biggest.
Yeah.
Was there anything? Was it a gap? Was it timing? Was it skating? Was there anything you had to adjust? As a defenseman, especially against some of those players you're playing against are pretty darn crafty with a lot of pace. So was there anything in particular?
I think the biggest thing for defensemen was in the neutral zone. We were just being told to basically not get outside the dots. A lot of the European teams, there was a lot of motion and they would take the puck back. They would try and gain a lot of speed. And I think if you got your feet kind of crossed over as a D-man and got outside the dots, that would expose the middle of the ice, which is what those teams all wanted. So that was a big point of emphasis for us, because I think in North American style hockey, that is taught, in some ways, but you can still recover if you do get outside the dots. But on the Olympic ice, you really couldn't. Like if your feet got crossed and your momentum took you one way and you got kind of crossed up, there was no way you were going to recover. So that was something that we worked on a lot leading up to the tournament.
Yeah, it's the way if you get crossed up, and the good players, which you're playing against all great players, they're going to recognize that and expose it. So that's a good little detail about not crossing your feet over as you're defending the rush in those situations.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to try and limit that as much as you can anyways, but it's definitely a bigger point of emphasis when you're on the Olympic size ice.
Yeah. It's hearing those little details, I would assume that probably focusing on that stuff helps in the moment, because that brings you right back. You're not looking at it as, oh my gosh, this is the Olympics. It's like, I got to focus on these details in the neutral zone. That brings it right back to what you might have learned in junior and in the minors and in the NHL, or you're in minors, but as you're coming, that brings it back. Do those little things help in that environment?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it helps, just like you said, bring you back to just the game itself, and you're able to focus on the details. It helps settle you down. You can be clear-minded in the moment, and okay, we worked on this, or even pre-scouts other teams. Okay, this is what we need to be prepared for. It just takes you back to being a hockey player and doing what you love instead of the moment or the tournament that you're playing in.
When you were a kid watching the Olympics, is there one that jumps out the first time you watched it and remember? For me, I remember watching the 92 Olympics, and it really that is burned in my head. I mean, we all have the Miracle Disney version, but was there one that you remember watching and then kind of, or put in your mind that you wanted to do that someday?
Yeah, well, the one that really stood out was the one in Vancouver. So it was 2010, the year, or the Olympics before the one I played in, and I was playing in Windsor, and we were coming back from Sudbury, and it was Canada-USA gold medal game, and we stopped at a Boston Pizza or something, and we just sat there and watched the whole game. And then the golden goal there by Crosby on Ryan Miller, that's just one that sticks out to me. I think I was maybe old enough to realize and understand the Olympics, what it means to represent your country, and then I watched it with my teammates and enjoyed that moment. Obviously the US lost, so that was tough. I took a beating there from some of my Canadian buddies, but
It has to be far from enjoying that moment. Goodness.
yeah, it wasn't. They were pretty good about it, but and I was in Canada, so I was kind of a lone ranger there. But just that watching that, I obviously knew I wanted to get to the highest level I could in hockey, and grateful that I did. But watching that in that moment in Canada, I think was just a fun experience for me.
Oh, I bet. So were you that game? You get back on the bus, drive back to Windsor. Was it in your mind that the next one you wanted to be playing in?
No, I mean I didn't. At that point, I didn't process all that. I didn't think about that. I didn't even know if I would be playing in the NHL at that moment. I was when I was there with Windsor. We were a really good team, focused on the Memorial Cup, and so I never was like, 2014, maybe I'll have the opportunity. That didn't happen until much later on, once I was somewhat established even in the NHL. So that definitely took a little bit of time.
Nice. What advice would you give a kid now who has watched the Olympics this year and has those Olympic dreams?
It wouldn't be any different than what I would tell kids who are trying to make the NHL or trying to go play D1. I think it's just all the same. I think it's important to have balance in your life. That's something that I believe in. When the hockey season was over, I put my gear down and I focused on baseball. And I think there's other things that you can be doing where you don't have to be skating 12 months out of the year. Because by the time you get to the pro level, you can be a little burnt out. And I just think it's important to have balance in your life with other sports and with your family and friends. So obviously focus on what you can control and the time that you're investing in hockey and trying to get to the highest level. But it's not your whole life at the end of the day. So you have to enjoy other things and make sure that there's a good level of balance there.
Yeah. And so many little things that you've said that you've done a good job of being in the moment, your whole career, the fact that you weren't looking past different things, even leading up to finding out if you're on the Olympic team and you hadn't reached out to the other guys. There's a lot of good messages there for kids, just to control what you can control and be in the moment.
Yeah. I think that's just what I've learned over time. I mean, I'm 15 years in now, so I have experience in that. But when I was younger, I was learning on the fly. I was playing at 18, so life comes at you pretty fast in those moments. And I've had a lot of mentors, guys that have been around a long time, help me out along the way, and I'm just thankful for that and that experience. But it just going through it has helped me get to this mindset now. There's growing pains when you're young and you're playing in the NHL. So I'm just I'm thankful to be at this point now and have a little bit of experience.
Nice, yeah, more than a little bit of experience.
Yeah,
but we really appreciate you sharing your Olympic story. It was really cool. It's really fun to watch you play there. That's good.
Yeah, thank you. No problem.
Thanks a lot for your time today.
Of course.